Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. I hope that you're having a great Christmas season so far. We're 9 days away, but we have something very serious that we're still living with. It's the pandemic. The COVID-19 virus is still very much here. And this morning I want to check in with the Secretary for Health, Wellness and Family Development in the THA, Dr. Faith B. Israel. Good morning to you, Dr. Israel. B. Israel.
Hi, good morning. Good morning. And we've actually just changed the name of the division. It's Health, Wellness and Social Protection. Slight difference.
Okay. Social protection.
Yes.
All right. Interesting. What's the difference between family development and social protection?
So social protection really is a mechanism that allows individuals, vulnerable individuals, to withstand shocks. What are shocks? Shocks are events in life that can change your life. So you lost your job, there's a death in the family, or even you had a baby or you got married, and because you've had this changing event, your life has now changed and you need to figure out how to withstand that. So social protection really is a proactive way to allow people to build the resilience that's needed to withstand those kinds of shocks. It's not just family development, it's broader than just family development.
Okay, understood. Dr. Ami, how has your first week in office been?
Oh my goodness. Well, I guess officially my first week has been very hectic, although I hit the ground running since last Tuesday, since I understood what had been happening with COVID-19, and I actually started making contacts, having interviews with individuals, chatting with people, trying to get a sense of what was really happening on the ground. So it's been daunting. It is serious, it is dire. That is the word I used yesterday at our press conference, but it is something that I actually enjoy doing because I think that I come to the table with the necessary skills and competencies to maneuver and to work this out.
All right, so yesterday we recorded 150 deaths, 1,009 active cases of COVID-19. What does that mean for the healthcare system in Tobago?
Well, even before this, I have been saying for a very long time that what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago is actually good compared to what is happening on the island in Tobago. And when you've been looking at the rates of death, the rates of infection and so forth for the last couple months, we've been almost double what has been happening in Trinidad. The thing though is that we did not prepare for this. We did not use the projections that were given to allow the system to prepare for this. So we are currently at a point where we are almost close to breaking. And I say almost close to breaking because we are not quite there yet. I think if we implement some key strategies now, we would be able to prevent that from happening, but it's very, very close.
Key strategies like what?
So actually, one of the things we spoke about very early was the fact that we needed to really try to differentiate the COVID-19 patients, where they are taken care of and where the other patients are taken care of. I have been saying it for the last year and a half. We do not have a parallel healthcare system in Tobago the way there is a parallel system in Trinidad. So we have actually been working on trying to get that done. I actually had a meeting yesterday with some members from the Pan American Health Organization because we understand that what we need is a surge capacity, and we were strategizing on how to get surge capacity. That includes getting additional testing and figuring out how to test quickly on the island, because we still are unable to do that at a rate that is efficient for what we need. We then need to figure out how to treat with those who are positive, what we do with them, particularly those who are positive and well and are home, how we get them to stay home and that kind of thing. Those who are positive and ill, the kind of care that is needed for them, ensuring that if they need ICU care, for example, they have access to that. That means ensuring that we have the health professionals that are necessary to provide that kind of care. And of course, there's the overall social component of this. And we had discussions about that yesterday. We've been having discussions about how we would increase the surge capacity, how we would ensure that we can actually respond to the numbers that we are getting. So it's just a matter of rolling out. I actually yesterday started asking health professionals or other professionals, social scientists, for example, who might be willing to volunteer their time and services with us in Tobago, to send an email to us that is tobagohealth@gov.tt, tobagohealth@gov.tt, and really asking them to send us an email. Let us know who you are, what your technical capacity is, and let's see if we can use your services in the short term so that we can get this under control.
And I understand that you were also yesterday making a call for us to be able to seek out foreign assistance when it comes to getting our healthcare providers up. Can you expand on that a bit?
Yes, so yes, that was actually part of the discussion with the Pan American Health Organization. Let's see who is out there. So the call was for local and international. The Pan American Health Organization have given a commitment that they would also reach out to their networks to see who is available, to see what numbers are available, to see if that is an option. But other than that, there are quite a number, and after making the call yesterday, there are quite a number of Tobagonians, of Trinbagonians who are living on the outside, who actually have started reaching into us and providing that kind of support, us pledging that kind of support, whether it is with equipment, with testing apparatus, whether it is them coming, looking at what the possibilities lie. So yes, we are exploring all avenues because we need this to be resolved sooner rather than later.
And Dr. B. Israel, one of the things that is of great concern is, of course, the cost of all of these things. Yesterday, I heard the Chief Secretary saying that the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection needed $100 million to be able to get some of these initiatives up and running and some of these things in place to be able to secure what we need to secure going forward. What are the costs? The cost that we're talking about, the $100 million, is to cover all these initiatives that you just spoke about?
So, and actually no, because the cost that 100 million or 150 million or so, that is to cover some of the things that we've been backed up with for the longest time. What we are talking about would require so much more money, but we've recognized that the kitty is empty in the Tobago space, which means we have to think of new and ingenious ways to find additional resources. So we've started looking at international grant options. The embassies and international organizations and so forth who may have grant opportunities that we can tap into. We've started looking at all of that to see where we could go. We would also like, because I am sure that we will recognize that at the beginning of the pandemic, when the government of Trinidad and Tobago was withdrawing monies from the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, practically only 50 million of that came to Tobago as it relates to COVID-19 response, compared to the millions, multiples of millions that was spent in Trinidad as it relates to COVID-19 preparation. So if it is necessary, we will also approach the Minister of Finance to speak about getting a little bit of the Heritage and Stabilization Fund, because I think anyone who is looking at this with a critical, honest, fair eye would recognize that the funding that was sent to Tobago to treat with COVID-19 is definitely not equitable, and I am not saying equal, but certainly not equitable for the needs that we have on the island, given that it is literally an island surrounded by water and we do not have access to the services, as in we do not have easy, quick access to the services that were created within the parallel system in Trinidad without having to get on a boat, on a plane, or a helicopter.
Understood. Doc, I'm curious as to, the vaccination rate in Tobago has not been going up. It's not very, very high to begin with, and it's not going up, but we see the cases going up. Should we be concerned? Should Tobagonians be more aware and go out and get the vaccine? How are we going to encourage more people to get it?
Certainly, and that is actually one of the things that I have been looking at very critically. The reality is, though, that the communication strategy that was used to get people vaccinated in Trinidad and Tobago has actually failed. It has not worked. One of the things that I am looking at is shifting the communication strategy. I said yesterday in my press briefing that one of the first things that I would do would actually be reaching out to individuals who are hesitant for whatever reason, to find out what that reason is. In our discussions with PAHO yesterday, we recognized that some of that data they already started collecting some of that data in Tobago at a forum that they had recently. So that is a good start for us, because what we realize, what I know, for example, as a health educator, as someone who's been chatting about vaccines since they've been available, is that people have real, genuine fears and concerns, and just screaming at them, just shouting at them to go and take the vaccine is not helping. I actually have a very, very good friend who reached out to me and the person said, you know, Faith, I want to take the vaccine now, but I am afraid that I will die. And we had to go through a full conversation about where that fear came from and whether it was rational and the truth about the vaccines and so forth. And that person has at this point already gotten their first and the second dose. So I think that we need to reshape or shift the conversation about vaccines, and that would allow people to be a little bit more comfortable and therefore take it. But the fact remains that we have very high numbers of COVID-19 infections, and most of those, the vast majority of those, are individuals who are not vaccinated, and that is a reality that we need to be very, very clear about. But how we communicate it is critical.
Understood. I think the Minister of Health just this week was saying something very similar in terms of needing that one-on-one approach that you've already been taking and you've been advocating for. So I think it's definitely the way forward in terms of how we communicate with each other and get that message across clearly. I'm curious though, you mentioned earlier about the budget allocation to Tobago when it comes to COVID-19 relief. That budget allocation you're talking about was allocated to the THA or what the Ministry of Health sent to Tobago?
So this is the money that was sent to the THA. It was a $50 million that was sent sometime very early up. And there may have been another 50 million sent. But, you know, when you think about it, that is 100 million. And let me put that into perspective so that people really understand what we're talking about. At the last budget reading, the Minister of Finance allocated to Tobago, as in the whole Tobago House of Assembly, a developmental budget of a little over $200 million. I think it was 216 or something of the sort. When you ask, when they did the report on the refurbishment of the Red House in Port of Spain, the cost for refurbishing the Red House in Port of Spain was over $400 million. So you're seeing that the cost, what was spent on the Red House is almost twice as much as the money that will be sent to Tobago to develop the entire island. That is the kind of discrepancy that we're talking about as it relates to funding. And it's important to note that the fact that Tobago is actually an island is a critical factor that must be taken into consideration. While there may be underdevelopment happening in certain parts of Trinidad, the fact is, even if you live in Moruga, you live in Toco, or you live in wherever, you can still get into a vehicle and drive to Port of Spain, drive to where the development has happened. If you are living in Tobago, you cannot get into a vehicle and drive to Port of Spain. It means that you need to take time, the cost of actually getting there, the actual physical cost, but the cost to you being away from your family and your home and your work and all of that is surmountable. So when we are talking about development for the island of Tobago, we have to consider the fact that it is an island and we need it to be developed in a way that makes sense for the island. By the way, it's also important to note that if Tobago develops on par with Trinidad, then Trinidad and Tobago will develop.
I mean, I have no words there. I can't disagree with you at all. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago developing together is ideal. Now, I mean, we know over the years that there's not been equal spending in Trinidad and Tobago. That's a given, and we hope that, you know, we can be able to see the impacts of whatever spending can happen, and hopefully we can see central government and the THA working together. Have you already started working with central government from the health and wellness perspective?
So what I have done has really been spending this time trying to get a sense of what is actually happening on the island in Tobago. And now that I've gotten that, I will definitely be reaching out to the Minister of Health. As my colleague said yesterday, he would be reaching out to the Minister of Finance. And he also, because he's Chief Secretary, is mandated by law, the Tobago House of Assembly Act, to also have communications with the President, with the Prime Minister very frequently. So that will start pretty soon. We just needed to get a sense of what was really happening on the island before we started talking externally.
All right. Well, Dr. Faith B. Israel, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning, and congratulations and all the best going forward. We hope that Tobago can get the relief that you guys need to be able to treat with the pandemic as we go forward.
Certainly, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. Enjoy the rest of your day. That's Dr. Faith B. Israel, the Secretary for Health, Wellness and Social Protection. Brand new name for the ministry across in Tobago, and she explained why the social protection and not family development is more than just developing the family, you know?
Yes.
Making sure that you stay safe, that you're able to help recover when needed, etc., etc.
I think she has some interesting points, some pertinent points that we definitely need to take into consideration. And I mean, Tobago, you're coming out. You're coming out with guns blazing. we're seeing, I think we're really going to see some changes, I have to be honest.
Well, I think that, you know, it's good to assess the situation, as it will, and then to be able to lay the cards out and say, all right, this is where we are and this is where we want to go, how are we going to get there?
Yeah.
And I do think it's crucial for the THA and the central government to work together to be able to make these things happen for Tobagonians, because I do think that Tobago does feel underdeveloped, and they do feel like they've been left out for quite some time, and I mean, that's why they went the way that they went.
Correct.
In terms of the election, and they hope that the new representation in the form of the PDP's leadership would be able to help them get into the direction that they need to get. So we'll stay tuned, and of course we're going to keep checking in to make sure and hold everybody accountable to all the words that they promised on the platform. And so far, you know, they've been assessing the situation, and they've said this is what it is, this is where we are, we're going to move forward and find the best way forward possible.
I think so. I'm looking forward to seeing, as you said, you know, seeing what they do and if they implement it. That's the most important thing. And I know that a lot of Tobagonians are looking forward to seeing that, you know, coming together, working as a team. But that's important, huh? We're working as a team. As Rocker said, central government and THA working together so that we can continue to develop and uplift, as Rocker says, Trinbago. That's important.
Exactly. Trinidad and Tobago. Together we aspire, together we achieve. We take a quick break and come back with more inside the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.